Hi everybody, this is Tor Storley and I am back with another video. In this video we're going to take a look at how you can take the 55 Excel functions that we created in using Rust for the DuckDB Financial Functions extension. In this video we'll look at how you can take that code base, remove parts of it, and then bring it into R in RStudion and create a package out of it. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here I am inside my repository on GitHub. It's called Financial Functions R. And as you can see, there's a lot of different folders and some files, as you can see. So I guess the first place you probably want to go is either click on README or go down on the bottom here. And you can see here's a little introduction to the package itself. And it kind of tells you your prerequisites, what you need to have in order to run this. It compiles the Rust code from the source, meaning here. If you're in Windows, you need to have Rust executable installed and the tools, R tools. For Mac OS, it's the Rust you can run in a terminal. You can run this curl command. Then, when you're ready to use it, inside RStudion in the console, you will say remotes install GitHub. And then you can point to my repository. And you also want to say build vignettes because there's going to be some help files that I have included. And if you want to see this, you can use this command, browse vignettes. And to verify your installation, you load the library and then you just run a test function like this. Here is a list of all the functions that we created. And you can see there's the same functions that I used in DuckDB. And to use it, you use library financial functions, and then you can start using these functions. And I also listed a bunch of these functions here, and I'll get some other documents that explain it too. It's also a short little thing about the differences between Excel and R. And I also have a tutorial I use as well as a vignette. Down on the bottom here, there's some links. So as you can see here, you can click on the starting guide here like this. And you end up on this page. And there's some other links here. You can look at the source code and meaning go to my repository like this. And you're right back in the GitHub repository. You can report the bug. You can cite financial functions like this. And there's some R stuff here, in other words. One thing you can also do is you can navigate on the top of this page. So this get started will simply land you on this page. You can go to references where you see each function here just listed under its category, if you will. And then there's also articles. Now this tutorial will just take you to this page, which basically will give you an overview over the functions and so forth. You can also click on these articles here and end up on the same place. So right here is how you build an R package with Rust. Now I don't think everybody that watches this video will be interested in trying to replicate how to build this package because it took me a while to get this to work. Back and forth with Claude over and over and over again and to get rid of all the errors that happened. And I run actions and workflow every time I push to GitHub. So here is my repository. As you can see, in this Financial Functions R GitHub repository, you can see there's something called actions. When you click on actions, you can see right now it's a job running. That job was triggered when I actually pushed my changes from my RStudion into GitHub. So if you look at this now, it started 2 minutes ago. And you can see I've been running a lot of this stuff because I made changes all the time. In the beginning, I got a lot of errors, as you can see here. But you can click into these action here. And whatever you have written in this package down YAML file is what it's doing. So as you can see, I have a few steps. It finished building the Mac. So when I look at the steps it took, you can see here, setup job, run the setup, install Rust. So it's basically testing this in the GitHub repository. It's running as a workflow. So if I go back here now, you can see we're on this step now. And you can check in and click into it. And you can see right now it's doing the setup. And one of these jobs is for Mac and one is for Windows. And then there's some cleaning up on a third step, I believe, the deploy step, which it hasn't started yet. So this will run for a few minutes. What I'm getting at here is that every time I push now, because I have it set up that way with this package YAML file, it will trigger a workflow out here, and it will test it, and it will make 2 versions of this code available, one for Mac and one for Windows. Now, the Linux I cannot get to work, so I skipped that one. So I just want to go through this and show you this workflow. So after it finishes here, you can see under actions for the build steps and the package down YAML file. Down on the bottom here, you can see these are the artifacts that was created. So what happens is when you're ready, you can simply go and install directly from this repository to your computer. And I lay it out here for you how to do that. You need to install this package remotes, and then you need to run this code here if you want to bring down the package. You need Rust installed because it's going to try to compile it. And I'll show you how I use it in Windows. Bottom line is you get this reference here. So you get to this, and up here you get navigations. So as you can see, it tells you the install steps, how to load a vignette. Now I think you should use this navigation here. If you're landing on this page in first, which is like the vignette page. And then you can go and read these build package blog or whatever you want to call it, article, a tutorial actually. So here is just laying out the structure. Then the links are down on the bottom here, which kind of take you to the same page. One thing I want to point out here is that you can also trigger this obviously from the README file. If we go to this here, you can see I lay out a bunch of stuff here, and it basically gives you a description of how to build this package. There might be other issues on your computer if you try to follow this, so I can't guarantee anything, but it's just how I did it here, and it worked for me eventually after a lot of back and forth. So what I suggest you do if you want to try it on your own is make sure you have Claude available. Sonnet 4.6 is what I use, and throw questions to him, give some, maybe files, snippets or whatever you're trying to solve, and errors in particular, and say, I got an error, what do I do here? And it will give you back and forth a lot of times. So here you can see, here's the architecture, Excel formulas. You're gonna write these pure Rust calculations. You use this extender package that will actually convert it from Rust into R, and then you finally have a package here. So there's 55 functions, there's 8 Rust modules, there's also unit tests that I use, same as I did with DuckDB. And of course, you get Rust super fast speed. Here are the functions. You can just follow here if you want to. Install the required R packages. And there's just a lot of details here. And I can't really go through all of this because it's very technical. And it has to do a lot with compiling Rust, getting Rust to work, and bringing it over into R by using these packages. So I'll just scroll through this fairly quick, and there's some files you have to use, and you have to be a little careful with this because if you're in Windows, you want to put all your changes in this one. You don't want to put it in the make_vars win file directly because that will be generated from this one. So there's small little gotchas like that in here. Here is the file structure, and as you can see, there's a lot of stuff. These are the modules. You might recognize these if you saw my previous videos about DuckDB extension using Rust, because I'm using same files, but I had to modify them. Here is the TOML file. You might recall that as well. And you have to make sure you use this and not this, which, it's critical in Windows if you're going to use Windows. And there's a little description here. A lot of small information about how to set this up. So I'll let you read through it on your own if you're interested. If not, we're not going to waste everybody's time on this. This is step 4. And so we get into special cases, declare all the modules, etc. And it's very Rust oriented. And of course, a lot of these functions here was created from scratch. You can see here you use these wrappers, the extender wrappers, because you have to wrap Rust into so R can understand it. And there's a lot of stuff like that. How you add a vignette, this kind of stuff. You make sure you have knitr and R Markdown installed. And then how to publish it to GitHub, for example. And there's a lot of these kind of commands you use, okay? You can set up your GitHub initial, structure. And this is basically what I used on mine. So, take it with a grain of salt. And then you're getting into where you make a change, you add a file, and then you push. And every time you push is when it triggers that action. So the GitHub action is in the YAML file, as you can see here. This is the package down file, and it lists a bunch of stuff for the job that you want to push. This is fine because the one you have to modify is the underscore package down. Let me bring it over so you can actually see it in RStudio. Every time I do this, as you can see, I add a vignette, this RMD file, and then I commit it, as you can see here. And then the final one is this git push. Every time you run that, you can see it gives you this information and it fires off that workflow on GitHub. So that's how this is working. And here is the file that is called underscore package down YAML file, which sits in the root directory. This one here does not sit in the root directory. It sits in a different directory, okay? It sits under, let me see, where does it sit? So here you can see the package down YAML here. And then you have this .github workflows. And this is the one that triggers the workflow in GitHub. And that's the file you're looking at right here. Okay, so there's a lot of information. And you have some sample of it out there in my document. This one. Just want to show you that this is available and how you publish to GitHub. And then how do you install it for the user. So you can get it from GitHub, like I said. Just follow that other document I say here. Just follow the info, not this one, the main one, this one. So you can see right here, you run that remote, right? If I can find it. Yeah, so you can see, you can just go to the README file and it tells you how to do this right here. All right, so that's a couple of those documents and some references for you. Here is the actual project, as you can see. There are a little overlap between these folders here, so it might be a little messy. Here's the source, and under source, there's a Rust folder. Here is these files I was talking about with the make vars win, and this is all to set it up so it can actually understand the Rust conversion into R for Windows, for example. So also there's an entry point C file, as you can see here. It's all the plumbing that's necessary for R to understand this. And you have a git ignore because there might be some files that are really large when you compile a Rust code and you don't want to send that to GitHub. But under Rust here, you can see you have your cargo toml files. You should be familiar with that from the other video. And then you have the source, and this is where all the files are sitting. So something I had to do that was not there in the other one, I had to remove stuff that anything that related to DuckDB I had to remove. It's basically all the calc functions. And also one other thing I had to do was in the wrappers, I had to make the names into string, to text, in other words. I'll let you study up on this as much as you want because I'm not going to waste your time if you're not interested in building this. But one thing you might be interested in is how to use it. So that will be what we should cover now. Okay, so as you can see, I'm having a blank opened RStudio. And what you can do is you can go to packages if you have it installed. Now, I don't expect you to have this the first time around, so you don't have to do this step. But if you try it over and over again, this might be something you need to do. You can just choose this package called financial functions and delete it. So now I'm removing it, so it's gone. So the next step would be how to actually install this one now. And if you recall from the documentation, you can use this remote thing, right? So let's try that and see how that behaves. So I'm going to grab this, go back into RStudio, and paste it here, and run it. So now you're going to see it's going to try to find it out there on GitHub. It's going to start running the installs and all that stuff. So as you can see here, it's checking for the files, preparing it, looking at the descriptions, installing the package to build vignettes. So I'm gonna just slow it down here while you're waiting. Okay, so as you can see, it finished and it went through and it installed the package, and there's a lot of technical stuff here. Then it goes ahead and it reads the toml file and it creates all the necessary references to the crates, downloading them, compiling them, And then there's some more stuff here. And then finally on the bottom here, it tests it and making sure. And then it says done. So now it's installed. So once that's done, all you have to do is open it by saying library, financial functions, like this, and Control Enter in my Windows machine. And it's loading it right here, as you can see. So now we should be able to test this and see if it actually works. So let's just grab a test file here, maybe this payment thing, and let's just run it and see if it produces something or if there's a problem still. So I'm going to paste that in here, okay, and hit enter. All right, so it did run. It produced a number. So right now, the package is up and running in my RStudio session. So that's great. Okay, I think that's enough. I hope you try it out. See if you can at least reference the package and actually make it run on your machine. I'm curious to see if any of you could do that. In part 2 of this video, we'll take a look at how you can test out the speed of the functions. And I also will let you take a look at my new set of functions, so-called batch functions. And we will compare it to the community extension we created earlier for this financial library. So we'll look at that in the next video. Thank you for watching this video, and give me a like if you like my videos, and consider subscribing to my channel. It'd be fantastic. I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.